So let us now explore a little bit more about function invocation and variable environment. Okay, so for that, let us take a function, okay, function A, and in this function we have a variable x, okay, where x, and let us assign 10 to it. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll also do a console log of this same variable. Okay, now what I am trying to showcase you over here is that if suppose we have one more function b and we use the same variable name, okay, suppose if I use the same variable name over here where x is equals to, this time give it a some other value, so let's say 100, and let us log this over here also. Okay, what I am trying to show how function invocation behaves behind the scenes. Okay, let us see that. For that, we'll take these two functions and let us introduce something in the global space also. Okay, so suppose we had the same variable name where x is equals to let's give it 1. Okay, 1 at the top of the program. Okay, and then after putting this 1 inside x, we invoke these two functions. Okay, suppose if I invoke these two functions, and remember from the last video, we can do this, like we can invoke these functions before even initializing them just because of hoisting. Remember from the last video we told? Now what we are trying to do is this where x, we are putting 1 over here and then we are invoking these functions. Okay, that means this code will be executed and these lines also will run. Okay, so what I am trying to say is that if we have same variable name all over there, so how our program behaves, how JavaScript handles this scenario. So we'll be talking and seeing this in detail, what happens behind the scenes. Okay, and after invoking these two functions, let us log this x once again and let's see what output we get. Cool. So now we are here with the program. So now let's see the output and then we will see how this whole program works behind the scenes line by line. That would be really very interesting. So whatever we learn in this video will be helpful for learning scope, for learning closures and everything. Okay, so we are moving slowly towards that phase. Okay, so let us see first of all what the output will be. Okay, so here is our browser. So let me just save this program and see. We got the output 10, 100 and 1. So let us go dive deep into that and see that how that program was executed and this output came up. So behind the scenes when we run this program, so whenever JavaScript runs any program, a global execution context is created, right? So let us create this global execution context. So here is our global execution context. So as you might remember, it will have two components again, right? The memory component and the code component, right? So this memory space is also known as variable environment. Remember? Okay, so this is the variable environment, and now even before executing a single line of code, okay, memory will be allocated in the first phase, right? So in the first phase, let us allocate memory and see how this works behind the scenes. So first of all, we will be allocating memory to these x and this function a and this function b. Remember, as we told in the previous videos? Okay, so let us allocate memory. So memory will be allocated to x, memory will be allocated to a, and memory will be allocated to b function. Okay, and what will be stored in this variables? Come on, quickly tell me. Okay, so x will store, yes, you are right, undefined. Okay, in the first phase, undefined, and a and b will point to the function code. Okay, these a and b will be pointing to the exact function code, this function code, right? They will be pointing to this exact full function code. They won't be storing undefined. Okay, so that will happen. And remember, in the last video we also discussed a little more about call stack. Remember call stack? What was it? So let us create a call stack for ourselves now. So let's create this call stack. So this call stack is a stack where all these global execution contexts are kept, right? So what will happen, as in when we created this whole global execution context, this will be pushed inside this stack. So let us just put it. So here is our global execution context right at the bottom of our stack. Make sense now? So now let us see what will happen. Now the actual time comes when the code will be executed. So when we run this first line where x is equals to 1, okay, so when we run this first line where x is equals to 1, so what will happen is this 1 will replace undefined over here. Okay, so now let us just remove this undefined and put in 1 over here in its place. So let us put 1. So here is our 1 over here. Now the x becomes 1. Now the code moves from this line to this line. So now comes the interesting part of the video. Okay, a function is invoked. A function is invoked. Let's see what happens. So whenever this function A is invoked, this function is invoked, now a execution context is created. This execution context is very much limited to this function. Okay, this is what I am trying to make you understand. Okay, so a execution context is created. Here, let us create an execution context. So this execution context again have two things, right? What are these two things? Memory and the code. Got it? Now it will again go through two phases. Remember two phases? First is the memory allocation phase. So this execution context is limited to this piece of code, right? So memory will be allocated to all the variables and functions inside this piece of code. Okay, there are no parameters, so no issues. There are no functions, no issues, but there is a variable x, right? And it has the same name as this. Okay, but what I am trying to tell you is that this x will have a separate new copy inside this variable environment. Okay, not a copy, I would say it's a separate variable altogether. You know, this execution context is like independent of everything else. It's like a mini environment, sort of a mini place environment where this small function code is executed. That's it. Okay, so let us try to allocate memory to x now. So inside this small execution context of A, x will be allocated. Okay, x will be allocated memory and undefined will be stored over here. Remember, undefined will be stored. One more thing to notice, okay, I forgot to tell you, as soon as this function is invoked, so as soon as this execution context is created, it is pushed in the call stack. Okay, this is the important thing. Remember, I'll show you the whole complete picture now. So this execution context was pushed into the stack. Let us push it. Okay, let us push it. And now we have A inside this call stack again. Okay, and the control is over here. Okay, A, and the control is at line number 7 right now. Okay, and when this function was invoked, the control in the global execution stack was at line number 2. Remember? So the control was here, like the code was running this. So global execution context was at 2, and now we are at 7, line number 7, this line. Okay, so once we execute this line, let us execute this line where x is equals to 10. So this where x is equals to 10 is now executed. So once we execute, this 10 will replace undefined. Okay, so let us now replace this. So after this line, we move to line number 8 now. Okay, so line number 8 is the console log of x. So what happens when you do a console log? Let us create a small console for us also. So this is our console. Let us see. Let us say this is our console. So when you do a console log of x over here, console log of x, so now JavaScript engine will look for the value of x in the local memory space. Okay, so when I say local memory space, that means it is very much limited to that particular execution context. So this is execution context, local memory is this, and this value of x, JavaScript engine will search for x inside this local memory. It finds 10 and it prints it on the console. Got it my point? So it finds this x value in the local memory, takes that and prints it to console. Okay, that's how this code is executed, and the console will now have 10 in it. Okay, now 10 will be printed in the console, logged in the console. Okay, so what happens now? We are done with our code of this function. Remember, now we have finished executing. So what happens if we have finished executing? Now important thing, right? Remember I told you in the previous videos, this whole execution context is deleted. It's vanished. The memory is gone, this whole execution context is gone, and this call stack is also gone. Like this whole functions will be removed from the call stack also. Let's pop off now. So let us try to pop this out from the call stack. Okay, let me remove it. So now this function is popped out of the call stack, gone, finished. Now the control goes back to global execution context line number 2 where we left. Okay, we left at this point, right? So now this a function has been executed. So now the control moves to line number 3. Okay, so let us move the control to line number 3 over here. So now again comes an important part. Again a function is executed. So let us just quickly do it. Bear with me patiently, but you'll learn things. Okay, so what will happen is now we move to line number 3b. Okay, now we invoke a function. Again a brand new execution context is created, right? Let us create an execution context. So we created this execution context, and it will again have two components, memory and code. It will again have two phases. First phase, remember what was it? X will be allotted undefined to it. Let us put in undefined. Okay, and with this we will now execute the code. Okay, so when we execute this piece of code, so x is equals to 100, so 100 will replace over here. Okay, let us do that. So it will run where x is equals to 100. So this 100 will replace undefined over here. So let us just replace it quickly. So once we replace this 100 with x, now we will execute another line, which is the console log of x, console log of x. Okay, so now JavaScript will try to find out this value of x inside the local memory. It will find x over here as 100, so it will print it onto console. Okay, so let us log this thing onto console. So now 100 will be over here. Okay, so this 100 will go over here. Now what happens? Again we have finished executing this whole code. Okay, so once we are finished executing, and this whole execution context will be popped off the stack also. Oh shit, we forgot to put it in the call stack in first place. Okay, but as soon as this execution context was created, right, it was pushed into the stack. Let us put it now what's there, right? So this was here, right? This was present here. Now what will happen once the whole code is executed? So this will pop off the stack. Okay, it will come out of the stack and it's gone. It's completely deleted. Even this memory space, everything is deleted. Okay, so let us just remove this out of the stack now. So let us remove this, gone. Okay, now the control goes back to global execution context line number 3. Okay, this line has finished executing and it will move to line number 4. So now it will execute line number 4, console log of x over here. Okay, so let me first remove all these things, right? These execution context and everything is not here, right? So let me just remove and erase it quickly to make things clear. So now we will remove this all thing, and now what will happen is this line number 4 will be executed. Okay, so now JavaScript engine will execute this line number x. Okay, so when it executes this line number 4 over here, now it will look for x inside the local space, so the local memory of this particular execution context. Okay, so over here the value of x is 1. Okay, this one. So this x1 value will be printed in the console when we execute this line. So what will happen? The JavaScript will print 1 in the console. Okay, so 1 will be printed in the console now. And we are finished executing our line number 4 also in the global execution context. Now JavaScript engine moves to the next line. It sees that there is nothing more to execute in any of the lines now. Okay, so in the remaining program there is nothing more to execute, isn't it? So now once whole code has been executed, now this whole execution context will also be deleted. Everything will be deleted. Even the call stack global execution context will be popped out and nothing will be left. So let us just remove everything, right? So this whole thing is like removed. Okay, this whole thing is gone now, and even from the call stack and even from the call stack, this global execution context is gone. So we are now left with nothing with us. So that is how this whole program is executed. So this was all the visual representation, right, with the help of diagrams. Now let us just see all these amazing things happening inside the browser also. I'm telling you, this will be real fun. Keep on watching it. Okay. So here is our program and we got this output, right, in the browser. But let us now see that what happens behind the scenes inside the code, right? So for that, let us put the debugger again. So remember how this whole code executes? So let us put a debugger over here. Now what will happen once you run the code? Remember the first step, global execution context will be created and pushed onto the stack. So this is the call stack here. Listen to this very carefully. This is the call stack here. When we run our program, a global execution context will be pushed onto the call stack. Okay. So let us refresh the page and see. Yup. See, this we got, right? Global execution context is now created and it is over here. The control is on line number 1. Okay. Now what we'll again see, there must be some memory allocated, isn't it? What should happen in the first phase? X, A, B should be allocated memory, isn't it? So there must be some memory. So here in the scope we have this memory, right? We got all these memory allocated. So we have this function A, C, we have this function B, and what will be there in X? Remember what will be there? That special keyword we used to see. Yes. So X will have undefined in it. So here is undefined in it. So now the code will start executing. So once we execute this line number 1 and move to line number 2. Okay, let me remove this breakpoint, line number 2. So let us play this. Now the first line is executed. Now see, the value of X must have been replaced with undefined would have been replaced by 1. So let us go in and say, so over here X would have been, where is, yes. So X now became 1. Okay, as expected. Now what will happen as soon as we run this A function? Now once the function is invoked, a execution context is created and pushed onto the call stack. Remember? So now watch this space carefully. Okay, when we create this call stack will push A in it. Okay, let me put a debugger over here to visualize it properly. So now I'm running the code. Okay, just see, a new execution context will be created and it will be here in the call stack. Okay, I am pressing the play button. Okay, yup. See, now we got this A here, right? Interesting, isn't it? So now we have this A here and the control moves to line number 7, right? Over here. So this was the global execution context and this was A. And now see an interesting thing also. So it has its own memory space and this A has its own memory space as expected. And see, here are two things, right? We have this global memory also and we have this local memory also. Remember? And as we said that in the local memory of that execution context, we have this X as undefined also because the code hasn't started executing, right? We have put a debugger over here. So this is interesting thing, right? And you must be wondering that what is this? What is this thing, right? Don't worry, we will be having a separate video altogether covering this concept also. But for now, just understand that in the local memory, so we have just X is equals to undefined in the first phase. Okay, so let us go executing the next line again. So what will happen? Now let us run. So X is now moved and this undefined is replaced by 10 now. Interesting, isn't it? Now what will happen? Now let us execute this. So once this console log will be executed, the control will go back to line number 3, isn't it? So let us put a debugger and like run this piece of code also. So we ran this piece of code and see this in the console. We got 10, right? So the 10 was printed and interesting thing happened, right? The call stack is now moved to global execution context now. That execution context of A was popped off this call stack. This also happened, right? Now when we move to line number 3, right? So we will invoke the B function again. Let's quickly do that again. Let me put a debugger over here also and we'll show you what will happen. A new execution context will be created and pushed into the stack. See, now the B is in the call stack. It will again have its local memory. X over here is undefined. Now when we run this line, so 100 will replace undefined. See, let me run that again. See, now 100 came over here in X, right? And console log of X will print it and move to line number 4. So now carefully watch and think, okay? So once this console log of X is printed and we are done with the function, what will happen is this B will be popped off the stack. I'll play and you quickly see that, okay? See, the B was moved out of call stack, right? And in the console, see, 100 is printed, isn't it? So now we will move to line number 4, and once we execute this line, what will happen? Our whole program will be finished and even the global execution context moves out of the call stack, okay? So let us just play this. Yep, see, now the call stack is empty and we are done executing everything and console log 1 is printed, right? This console log 1 is printed. So that's how this whole code is run, and that is how this whole every execution context maintains its own separate space, okay? So even if that execution context is created by a function, or it is the global execution context or any other execution context, they will have their own memory space. They will have their own virtual kind of an environment where they are running separately, independent of each other. That is what the motive of this whole video was, to explain you this small thing. Okay, so in the next video, we'll see the shortest JavaScript program. Do you know what is the shortest JavaScript program? We'll see in the next video. So watch that video. But before moving on to that video, give this video a thumbs up and keep watching Namaste JavaScript.